We are live, I think. Shoot over the invite. John, what's up, brother?
Yo, what's going on?
What's going on? So welcome everybody again. It's episode 11, Road to All-American. It's brought to you by ROKFORM. Make sure you guys check them out, rockform.com. Use code DMiller25, get 25% off your order. Ran the twist lock mount all week on St. Lawrence. Battling waves. The wind was brutal for a couple of those days, and phones stayed in place. So make sure you guys check that out. Keep your phone in place. And if it's pouring, you're in a position, it's not waterproof, you got to stow it, but it'd be good to go for all the chop. So let's get into it. John, welcome. Road to All-American. Good seeing you again,
Thank you.
brother.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. Can't complain. So how did you like your season this year? How did everything go?
It's a learning experience every day. There's no doubt about that. Definitely fish against the best anglers. So, you really learn a lot as you go along each tournament. There's a lot that goes into it, and it takes an army to make it all happen. So it was a fun season for sure. Learned a lot of things, made some mistakes that I can learn from and take going into year 3. So
yeah. Joe LaBarbera said we are sexy. Of course he would. What's up, Joe? How you doing, brother?
he probably just wants us to say back you too.
This is live, unedited. We got to deal with these things as they come. But yeah, no, as I saw you had a couple posts throughout the season, and you had a couple rocky moments, but you bounced back in where you needed to. So that's a good thing. But how'd you like how was the transition going from like Toyotas, Opens, BFLs, and various local deals going to the Elite Series? Do you feel like it was like a smooth transition, like, okay, I know what to do, or was there like a learning curve in that aspect?
I mean, the fishing part's the same. You're still fishing. It's you versus the fish. In that sense, it doesn't change. Like, no matter where you go, it's you still catch the fish no matter what series you're in. The real big change is the business side of it, the behind the scenes, the off the water, but then also putting that all together and then trying to go back to focusing on fishing firsthand foremost. And then at the elite level, from what I've seen, it's everyone catches them. Basically, almost every tournament, almost every angler weighs at a limit. That's the big difference I've noticed. You don't go to tournaments where 3 or 4 fish kind of keeps you in it a day. You have to have a limit in every tournament. That's your only way to make a top 50 cut. I think even the Sabine River, I'm pretty sure everyone had a limit both days that made the day 3 cut. One of the toughest fisheries there is.
Yeah, it's definitely I noticed that too. Like, even with the watching like the guys on the other side on BPT, like those guys that go out there and like back when it was every fish counts, it's like, bro, like these guys catching like hundreds of fish, like it's ridiculous. Like, they got 50 limits, and then they got to do it again day 2, and but yeah, that's definitely a noticeable thing. But as far as like for your like skill set and everything, you're already a hammer regionally, so I would expect that you were able to get in there and be able to laser focus on the task at hand. Did you did you feel like distractions?
Just trying, like I said, the whole business side of it, taking that and then trying to go back to focusing on the water. That's the biggest thing. Didn't really have any distractions other than that side of it. Trying to get all those pieces put together. You meet new people, you meet new companies that you work with, especially going into it that first time. You don't know them, but now after have the ball rolling for 2 years, I kind of have an idea. Everyone I talk to them more regularly, and I kind of know who I work with hand in hand a lot more than I did starting the first season. Going into the first tournament.
Yeah. And it's the language is totally different too, because
Mhm.
a lot of working with companies and stuff, the marketing lingo, you know,
Mhm.
different different aspects of the business that the people that are fans of the sport, they don't see all this backside stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm aware of the same stuff as you are. Um, what was your favorite moment of the season for the 2023?
Probably the. Let's think about it. Uh, uh, Probably the last tournament that second day. Uh, After the first day, I had a horrible day. She made some bad decisions, poor execution, and it really did almost break me. I had 3 fish on bass track at 2 o'clock, and that's exactly what was in my live well. It was day one was one of the toughest days I've ever had on the water, mentally, big time. Just to bounce back on day two, that was kind of I took that as a learning experience and seeing how much I've grown as an angler. To have the day I had on day one, I still managed to survive it by the end of weigh-in, and then came back out the next day and caught 23 pounds. So to see myself rebound that quickly, from day one to day two, that was a real special day on the water. Day two, everything that I could have hoped went right, and I just made the right decisions and I executed nearly perfectly, and it led to me jumping up kind of just missing the day three cut, but for what the hole I dug myself in on day one, I kind of had to live with the results, and I was just thankful that I had as good of a day two. I salvaged the points that I had, and almost had a shot at fishing day three. I missed it by 10 ounces. So
Oh, ouch. Yeah, the you I noticed too with me. Um, like I shout out to Iconelli because Iconelli is known for saying is like never give up, And I've had a few tournaments where like I've caught the winning fish on the last cast. I won the state classic in the Bass Nation a couple years back. The I actually had the weight to win it. I didn't know that at the time, but that last fish on the last cast was like 8 minutes left. I wasn't far from the ramp. Don't
mhm.
throw him in the box, head back to weigh in. I don't know what he weighs, but he was a good one, and it sealed the deal. But you never know when all the stars are gonna align for you. Like you just got to stay focused and just keep at it, and you're doing a stellar job at that.
And it's at all levels. Like I hear guys, like there's guys that make the elites based off a last minute fish catch through the open. There's guys that are even at other levels that win tournaments, or they make a championship, or they might win a championship just based off of a certain fish catch that, it is a highlight of a day. So you just never know when that's going to be. I think we all have those fair shares of it. We just don't realize them at the time. It takes, a day later, sometimes even way later, to realize how valuable that catch was. And we even look at that, like as us elite anglers, after the season's over and you see the points, how everything shakes up, whether you're in the top 10 in the points, or whether you're right on the cut line, just in the classic, just outside, just inside of making requalification for the elites. You really think about all those moments that happen, those fish catches that you lost, but then there's a lot of those catches you had that were really remarkable. Like I had one at Santee Cooper, I remember. I had the fish bite right at my trolling motor, and in one motion, I just cranked 3 times and lifted him in the boat. Went to go, I put him in the live well, I was throwing a Zoom speed worm, picked up my speed worm, went to go fix it to recast again, and the hook was not even through the worm. So that fish just grabbed the tail, and since I had the momentum and I never stopped, I landed that fish without even hooking him. Just swung him right in the boat. So those moments like that really are crazy. You don't realize how crazy they are. Like that really could have changed the tournament. It could have changed the whole year. You just never know until the end.
Yeah, you got that. You got that footage. You got the GoPro running for that one.
I did.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I had one on the Bay this year. The one tournament, like I could not figure anything out. The first BFL this year. I fished everywhere. I couldn't buy a bite, but I had a couple follows in the Northeast. And I rolled up to this dock in the tournament. I pitched to it. I was throwing a worm. I drop shot like 5-inch finesse worm. Flick in there, feel the dunk, set the hook, crank him in. I fight him around the post. I get him to the side of the boat, and he comes off. I'm like, but I fought him for like a good, 10, 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not far, wasn't a far pitch or anything. But I pulled up and I go re-rig it like what you said, and the hook never went through the worm. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I done fought him around the piling and everything, and so I believe it. You see crazy things happen on the water.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about worms and stuff. One of the questions that like is like the going thing on the podcast is, what's been your go-to bait this year, or it could even be the past couple years, like something that might not be your favorite technique,
Mm-hmm.
but like something that's been like at the ready all the time, always on deck.
Uh, I was definitely, like I just was saying, a Zoom speed worm. That's been one anytime I'm largemouth fishing strictly. Don't throw for smallmouth, but a drop shot, whether I'm up north, down south, a drop shot. It's a moneymaker. It's a day saver. It puts a lot of fish in the boat, and sometimes you just you got to turn to it. It's not really like a favorite bait or anything like that, and it's not a bait I've used in every tournament. We definitely have to utilize specific baits based on where we are at for tournaments, but it's one of those that I always have tied on, and it never leaves the boat. Like there's always one in my boat at all times.
All right. So drop shot, I kind of butchered that. I meant to say like bait/technique, but drop shot and the speed worm, we get the deal with Texas rig and drop
Mm-hmm.
shot. So those two. Mine's been now it hasn't really applied a lot the past couple tournaments, but like earlier in the year and with the local derbs I fish and stuff I fished the past couple years, I'm a fan of the Carolina rig. It's a pain to tie. Got 3 knots, if you're using a barrel swivel. But the finesse version, the Mojo rig, that I love that setup, and it like I have like a good rod for it that I really like using, and I've been doing like a bobber stop before the weight instead of doing like a barrel swivel or something, and you can adjust it on the fly. So if you're fishing shallow water, you can make it so where you work
Mm-hmm.
it through the weeds, it can come up and down, and the worm follows nice and slow. That's been a really good bait technique that I haven't seen like nobody talking about. And but with the podcast, I want to try to like get different points of views from all different anglers and stuff, so the viewers can, new people that are new to fishing can have new things to try that they may have never done before.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for like me to answer, like the hard part for answering that question is just based off of fishing different places. You don't ever want to get too locked on a bait. And I made that mistake beginning of the year. We had Okeechobee and then Seminole back to back. Caught all my fish for the most part at Okeechobee on a bladed jig, and I literally ended that tournament and went into Seminole and said, I'm just going to keep chucking this thing. And I chucked it for 2 straight days of practice, and I think I caught 1 fish on it. So after 2 days of practice, I was already so far behind the 8 ball on trying to, catch fish, locate fish, because I tried to commit so much to trying to throw the one bait I wanted. And it cost me, but eventually I was able to switch up. Final day, adapted, and I got on, some fish, and it led to a good tournament. But that's one of those mistakes you also don't want to make, only being one dimensional. If you try to get too focused on something, I think it could hurt you sometimes.
Yeah.
And for sure, for me, in my experience at the beginning of the year, it hurt me just in those first 2 practice days. I was able to kind of put it down and forget about it, but I just wanted to throw it so badly.
Yeah. I've had recently Eric Panzeroni on from the MLF Invitationals, and he's been hammering them with the bladed jig, and he's like, I just throw it all the time. Like he loves it. And we were talking about some other stuff, flipping and pitching and whatnot, and frogging. But but yeah, I think a lot of people. I think that happens to a lot of people where they just like they're so focused on one technique, and then it becomes like a one-trick pony deal. If you fish local a lot, like you have like one specific lake that you fish all the time, and that's what works most of the year, then keep doing it,
Yeah,
But
like
if you're going to venture out,
if you're on like the Potomac River or say something like that, a grassy area, bladed jig is going to work every time you go, for sure.
yeah. But if you start mixing around different smallmouth fisheries, mixed bag fisheries, you're going to be in a world of hurt. You
Yep.
need to branch out and try out new things for sure. So for newer anglers, younger anglers, what techniques would you like people that are brand new to fishing or people that are huge fans of fishing, but they just don't have the time to go fishing. I want to try to give people like that, like things to think about, because like you might have a guy that his family doesn't have a lot of time, so his 6 hours that he gets to fish once every 2 weeks is like his tournament day. He's got to put fish in the boat.
Yeah.
What do you any advice for those people, like what they like some options for like baits or techniques for guys to go out and like really put fish in the boat, like they have no practice, no nothing, they're just fun fishing, but they love fishing and they just want to go out and catch them?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's like we just touched on the bladed jig. If I was going to pick two baits, one moving bait, one slow bait for any fisherman, anytime, anywhere, there's so many different seasons that can be covered. Throwing a bladed jig and then throwing just a Senko style bait, a stick worm. You can rig it wacky style, you can rig it Texas style with the weight. Those two presentations are going to be critical for if you're fishing on a boat, if you're fishing shallow, deep, if you're fishing on the bank. So utilizing both of those baits is the perfect scenario for someone of any level to just go out there, have fun, and catch some fish. You can literally just walk down the bank. You could pitch the bladed jig in parallel with the bank. You could throw it out in deep water, bring it back in. Or if you're in a grassy area, you could pitch that stick bait or Senko style bait in the holes of grass, or if there's laydowns or anything like that. So it's just two baits you can utilize for a lot of different purposes and be really efficient, which is basically how you're going to catch a lot more fish, is if you just be as efficient as you can.
Yeah. One of your sponsors actually just joined Martin's Custom Baits.
Yeah,
Shout out to Martin's.
Hoodie on.
There you go. Good promo right there. Martin's, shout out to Martin's. He put together some custom. I had a little deal with spinnerbait. He put some together for me, and I've been cracking them on him.
That's awesome.
So make sure you guys check out Martin's. He makes some stellar products over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
His buzzbait is killer too. I like his buzzbait.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
I have no affiliation with Martin's other than I give him money, he gives me baits.
Yeah, I wish we had our schedule lining up a little more to throw the buzzbait, but we've been in smallmouth country. But I did put the spinnerbait to good use at Champlain. I caught a giant in practice the one day. We had some windy, rainy conditions, and it was on the Champlain special color. So it's the perfect color when you're on Lake Champlain.
Yeah. Martin's, make John a couple of the ones that you made me. They're good. There's a little crazy combination of blades on them. The smallmouth up there, love them.
Mm-hmm.
No problem, brother. Yeah, so I got what was the other question I wanted to get into? I'm drawing a blank. Oh, so next year's schedule's out for 2024, and a lot of hype behind this particular schedule, and there's like some fisheries that guys haven't been to. So are there any fisheries on here that you haven't fished before that you're really looking forward to?
Well, I have not fished Toledo. I'm going to pretend like I never fished Fork because I did not do good my first year there. Never was at Wheeler and never was at Smith. But to look forward to one in particular, got to look forward to all of them. I know going into year one, mistake I made, I picked one or two favorites and they can let you down. Yeah. So this past year, I treated everyone the same, looked forward to each one equally, and it definitely works out better. I think kind of, gets you a little bit more focused in a certain way where you can approach each one the same and not weigh one higher than the other. You just got to go into each one and try to do as best as you can. I know if you put a lot of pressure on yourself for one that you pick you really like, it might make it even harder. That's some guys are locals to certain lakes, and it's even harder for a local on their home lake. So I try to treat everyone the same, and based off this year, I think that was a much better strategy than I did on year one. So going into next year, definitely going to approach each one the same way and, look forward to everyone and kind of attack them the same way.
Yeah. I talked to a couple of guys from the elites, I know a few guys, and that the other lake, I don't recall seeing that on the schedule, but you guys have been there. I think you've been there once, but Bass has been there twice. Lake Oahe, I think it's called, in North Dakota. I may have butchered the name. Sorry, people in North Dakota. But the Lake Oahe, I think is the name of it. It's a smallmouth factory. I think MDJ win it or somebody, or
Yeah, yep, yeah. We were there last.
Casey Ashley, I think got it 1 year, and
Yep.
MDJ got it another year.
Yeah, we were there last year, and from what we seen last year, I wouldn't consider it a smallmouth factory. I don't know what kind of happened going into it. I was told that it was incredible. I even had a couple anglers say they basically jump in your boat, and then after a full day of practice, I had 2 bites, and I got back to the cabins we were staying at, and the guy who told me they basically jump in my boat, I walked up, I'm like, "What's going on?" He goes, "I don't know what happened. Something's off. It ain't working right." He's like, "I only had 4 or 5 bites today," and then we went out the next day and had the same problem again. So it was definitely on a downward trend last year, and I'm not really sure why, but apparently when they were there in the past, I know a lot of guys pre-practice the year before we were there, and they said it was like 100 fish every day.
Yeah. What was that? Is that a deep fishery? Like,
Yeah, really deep.
What's the deal there? Like, they're suspended, or are they dragging bottom?
Pretty much, a lot of them were suspended for the most part. There wasn't a whole lot of structure. The middle section of the lake had a little bit of rock. This kind of seemed like where the majority of the fish were, but a lot of times they were just random. Like one day they'd be on one spot, a couple guys did good, and then the next day they didn't catch anything. So it was very hit or miss. I'm pretty sure I caught one smallmouth in practice in like 70 feet of water. It's a bit deepest smallmouth I've ever caught. Like,
Yeah, I got one in like the high 60s on the St. Lawrence before. I don't like catching fish that deep because I don't know what that does to them. Like when you bring them up,
yeah,
especially if they come flying up.
and I didn't even know like I would catch one that deep. I just happened to go out off like a break, and I seen the smallest. I mean, 70 feet down, it was a super small dot, and I just dropped my drop shot down. It's going and going and going, and I stopped it like right at it, and you can kind of see like it wanted to come up for it, and he ate it, and I think it was like a 4 pounder, but it was the only one. I fished that in tournament. I never seen another fish there.
Yeah. What's your take lately on all the FFS controversy?
Uh, I kind of stay out of it for the most part. I mean, I think it's got its positives, it's got its negatives. Depends how you look at it. I mean, I have a pretty strong opinion on it. I kind of just keep it to myself, though. I do think that it won't go nowhere because I personally believe if it's to be banned, it has to be banned everywhere. If you're going to ban something, you just can't ban it from us at the top level because there's guys below us that are trying to take our jobs. So they shouldn't be able to use it. There's a lot of guys who are even on the BFL level or just the weekend level that are using it. Eventually, they can get to, like you said, an All-American or whatnot. So if all those platforms, eventually can get to a next level, I feel like if it's going to be banned, it's got to be banned everywhere. So
Yeah.
me personally, I think there should be a limitation, whether that's one transducer, two transducers on a boat. The 4, 5, or 6 is definitely a little ridiculous. I fished next to it. It's different. It's a lot harder to fish when you're right next to a boat that has that many and you only have one. I kind of seen, big time eye opening how I you still have to catch the fish. I don't want to say easier, but how much more of a tool you have when you have multiple transducers than when you only have one. I mean, if you show up to the job with only one tool, you ain't going to be as efficient if you had 3 or 4 tools to do the job. So,
And I'm not sponsored. I don't have any sponsor or affiliation with any of the electronics companies, but they're not not all FFSs are created equal, in my opinion. Like
no.
looking at them, I'm not gonna name drop anybody, criticize any company or anything, but they're not created equal, and and not even in a quality standpoint. I'm talking like the way they work. Like for example, I will name drop Garmin and Lowrance both have the like not 360. I think it's like called Scout and one's perspective, so you could do like the 360 type view and see structure and then see the fish live too. But like one works at one angle where it's like excels in like 20 feet or less, and the other one you can only distinguish what the bottom looks like in like 45 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's differences. That's why I'm saying when they're not all created equal, I'm not trying to say anything's bad or good or anything like that. They're just different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have somebody that's locked into a contract with one company and he's competing against somebody locked into another contract with another company and has the options that are more suitable for the events, that's not fair, but it is what it is. You have the tools to do the job.
Yep.
I don't know. But my opinion is doesn't mean anything because I don't use it like how some guys use it because like the classic they had the screen up for Gussie while he was moping, and I'm sitting home on the couch watching it, and I'm watching his screen. So like it was entertaining, it was a slow fishing for him, but I guess people could complain that it's boring from a fan standpoint. But if he was on fire, lighting them up, then they'd be like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." But because it was slow fishing, then they could criticize, "Well, it's boring watching them look down at the screen all day." So,
Yep.
but
And to add to that, I think a lot of people. So one thing for me, and I know like people are saying that a lot of viewers want or say it's boring. They want to not see it the forward-facing sonar going on. They want to see something different. Now, when we go smallmouth fishing, no matter what, guys are going to use electronics, whether we have forward-facing sonar or not. So that's a tough thing to say because I used to always look down at 2D. I'm pretty sure everyone did. Now, I don't know where they're getting a lot of people saying that the viewers don't want it because I just fished a team derby this past weekend. I had to fish solo because of our rules. But I drove around from spot to spot, and every boat that I ran by and fished by, two guys on the front of the boat, everyone staring down. So there was 45 boats in the tournament, and I probably seen maybe 25 on the water. Everyone was using forward-facing sonar. I know those same guys that are fishing those tournaments watch our tournaments. So right there, if you're utilizing that technology, why would you want to see it banned at our level? You want us to go from catching 105 pounds, watching Patrick Walters win the St. Lawrence River, to go back to 85 pounds winning the tournament or 88, whatever used to win them. I, for one, would rather see the bigger weights. It's just, it's how the technology has grown certain styles of fishing. And some people say it's for the better or the worse. It's hard to say. Now, I know there are certain lakes we've had this year where forward-facing sonar really surprised a lot of people. I don't think that'll necessarily keep up on some of those lakes. Like, I don't think you'll continuously see Lake Okeechobee ever won with forward-facing sonar over and over and over again. I don't think you'll see it happen on Sandy Cooper over and over and over again. But when you go to those more offshore places, you're always going to see it play.
Yeah. My thing with forward-facing sonar and how I use it, for anybody wondering, so I never really talked about this on the podcast. I use it as a tool more than anything. Like if I see a fish on it, like yeah, of course. But if I'm because I'm a power fisherman, so I like to flip. I can flip bolt for eternity, and I'd be in heaven. So if I'm like sitting out like my home lake is Candlewood, so you have like before all the grass disappeared, like you have the bank comes out like maybe like 5-10 feet from the bank, then you have like a weed line that's 10 feet front to back. The inside weed line is 5 feet deep. The outside weed line could be 16 feet. So if I'm sitting away from the weed line because they're finicky or something, I can just point because there's deep submerged weeds and the water clarity, I can't see the weed line outside of fishing it. So I can sit the boat back and be like, okay, I'm 25 feet from the edge of the weeds. I could pitch to it because I know I can see my lure come down and I'm pitching to the weed line, but I'm not staring at it the whole time. I just kind of like get an idea of where to put the boat. Another thing is like if there's like one boulder in the middle of nowhere, okay, I can line up my cast, fire to it. I can perceive distances to different objects I want to cast to. So that's how I use it most of the time because it suits my style. That's how I implement it into my style of fishing. Whereas, the going around like open water and just panning for schools of pods of fish, I don't really do that. That's not how I fish. I'm not wired like that. So it's kind of null and void my perspective on it. But you made a great point though too with the if it's banned for you guys, it's banned for everybody. Now, who exactly is talking about banning it? Like, is that something just people are saying, or did somebody from some point say this is a possibility we might ban it?
I just know that I seen there was a handful of. I didn't really watch anyone's YouTube videos or anything like that, but I know there's a handful of people who made videos saying that it should be banned, and other handful saying that it needs to be kept. I know that a lot of people make comments, and I don't really read into that on stuff, but it seems like when we do have forward-facing sonar tournaments, there's always a lot of comments about how boring it can be, and a lot of people make a claim that they want it banned. And there was a false post back on April Fools, I think, from some website that said that they were going to ban it in certain states. That wasn't true.
Oh, I
But
remember that.
yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think we will know anytime soon. It might be a little while from now, but whether it's banning it, limiting it, or leaving it how it is, it's going to be one of those three. We just have to wait and see. And as anglers, we're going to have to deal with whatever results we have and utilize whatever we have to our abilities based off whatever answer we do get when we do get one. I'm not sure what's going to happen, so we can only wait and see on that.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool though, like putting a limit on it, like to even the playing field. That's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people like like if you're fishing an open tournament or a buddy tournament or something like that, then it doesn't matter. But like something like that, whereas like in MLF on my end, BFLs, Toyotas, Invitationals, BPT, and do one blanket, you get one deucer.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like that would be like level the playing field because there's a lot of guys like legends, that I've seen like just watching like the between the Elite Series and other tournaments, they only run like two or three graphs, and then you got other guys run with 5 or 6 graphs. So
it's hard to say like what's the best decision to make because there's a lot of other aspects that go into our sport that you can also make a claim that have helped all of us anglers benefit catching fish, learning how to find fish. The 2D I said was great for years. We also have the mapping. The mapping nowadays is incredible. It's not where guys are just dropping a trolling motor and just live scoping around aimlessly all the time. Guys are still utilizing their mapping. They're finding locations on the body of water. So that's one thing. Like I hate when people get almost discredited for doing well because they did it on forward-facing sonar. Those guys still picked out an area on a map. They went to that area based off what they seen, based off, their knowledge of studying maps or based off their history of fishing lakes. They went to that area on the body of water and they broke it down. What that forward-facing sonar did, it allowed them to break it down a lot faster than they ever did before. But they still picked that spot off the map. They ran the boat there and they had a game plan in their head on how they were going to approach it and catch those fish. Yes, the forward-facing sonar definitely helps them, but there's so many other things that we have that benefit us to go catch those fish. Got the Ranger boat, as you can see behind me, the Mercury engine, it gets us there. Like I just said, the mapping. There's so many tools we have, the rods, the reels, the line, everything that goes into it. So you can make a claim for a lot of different things on what benefits us so much to a certain point. Me personally, I don't think you can take away only forward-facing sonar out of all the things we have and everything that goes into it. I think it's just another tool, like you had said, that goes into our tool bag like we have.
Yeah. Now, Bass though, something off topic about bans and limitations. I don't know if things have changed when I was doing a lot with Connecticut Bass Nation. I was on the executive board for a time period. I remember reading somewhere like 250 is the max horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a limit there on, you don't see guys running 300s or 400 horsepower boats to go 100 miles an hour, so they have some restrictions like in there. I don't know, but I don't know. We'll leave it for the viewers at home to decide on what should be done with forward-facing sonar. I'm a fan of it. I use it. I have it on my boat, and it comes in handy, and sometimes it doesn't. And not for nothing, there's some guys that have been running live scope since day one, since before anybody knew what it was. And if it was that miracle thing that, like one trick pony type of deal, then those couple people would be winning every single tournament because they have the most experience using it, So it's obviously, in my opinion, just another tool at our advantage or disposal to be able to put fish in the boat, and case closed. So I'm Team Dobbins Rods. Shout out to Gary and the staff over there. But your company, Arc Fishing, has released a very good bait caster from what I'm hearing and reading online.
Yep. And a spinning reel, which is coming out.
Is it out? It's not out. They just
pre-order available.
Pre-order? What was it? iCast debut?
Yep. It was debuted at iCast.
Gotcha. Okay, so all right, but now Tackle Tour, I'm a fan of Tackle Tour. Shout out those guys too. Because I'm into like tricking out my reels and getting JDM stuff. And they do a lot of reviews on all sorts of products. And they've been touting these Arc reels like they're no joke. They're not just, some random reel like that other companies, because there's some companies out there, that have like, they all come from the same factory or something. But Arc's on another level. Like they put a lot of effort into this reel. So I believe there's 3 models, and they're both available left-handed, right-handed, 3 gear ratios each. Take it away. Tell me about the reels. Like you've been running them.
Yeah, so like you said, there's other companies that kind of get all their stuff from the same places. Arc's its own company. They have their own facility, and that's where it's all coming from. So actually there's 4 different speeds. There's a 5 gear ratio, a 6, a 7, and an 8. There was a G3. So it's the Arc Gravity Baitcaster. There was a G3, a G5, and a G7. That's what you're referring to as the 3 models. There's actually 5 coming into play now going forward. I cast it with some, actually, let me rephrase that. There's 6. I cast it with some other ones released. A G1, which is like your very low entry level one. For anyone that's just trying to get into fishing, the G3 is staying the same. The G5, the G7. There's also a G8 being added. And then there was another one that's being added. I think it's the BFS, where there's the spool in it for throwing very light line on a baitcaster. I know some guys request that and want that, where you can throw like 5, 6, 7 pound test. I know that's like a big JDM, Japanese thing. So that's one that's coming out as well. So all that'll be released next year and whatnot. So a little bit about the reels. I've used the G3, the G5, and the G7 because that's what we've had out for about the last, year plus, dating back to the previous iCast. For me, the way I break it down, I use the G5 and the G7, and for the most part, what I do with the G7s, I'll cast with, and on the G5s, I'll flip with. And the reason for that, plain and simple, is the G7s have a carbon fiber handle. The G5s are the regular, I think it's the aluminum handle. So, or whatever they're made, So that allows me to not have any flex at all. With the carbon fiber, I've noticed from years past that I've always had a little flex in carbon fiber handles. So if I'm flipping really heavy, I don't want that. So that's why the G5, the G7 with the carbon fiber handle, it makes it lighter. So that's where I utilize it for casting, any moving baits and whatnot. The difference between all the models, between the G3, the G5, and the G7, the G5 and the G7 are the gravity braking system, and that's the technology that makes the reel so special. Those 2 reels have a patented design that Arc designed in their braking system called gravity, and basically the difference between those 2 reels, other than they have the same braking system, is the handle, like I just mentioned. The G7 is going to have more bearings. I'm pretty sure the G7 has 11 bearings, while the G5 has 9. A little bit lighter weight on the G7 versus the 5, but I think it's only by like 0.0 or 0.1 of an ounce. It's very, just a little bit, but it's obviously, that's what, why one's worth more than the other. And I'm pretty sure they both have the same drag. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what exactly it is, but I flipped with it, 60-pound braid down in Florida. no drag issues or anything like that. So it really was good no matter what elements I put it under. But that's kind of how I break the two down. Now going forward, we're adding a G8, which is going to be, I believe, even lighter by a good bit. I know that's going to be a little bit of it was cut down, like the size, I believe, to make it a little bit lighter. It's going to have, I think, even higher bearings in it. Don't have one yet, haven't used one yet. That'll be kind of on the plate for next year and whatnot. But I've had the G5, G7 all year long. It's been an incredible year, and they're the farthest casting reels I have ever used. And I'm not just trying to like plug them or try to sell it. You really have to put one in your hand to truly see it, but I can outcast any reel I've ever casted by a long shot, 10, 20, 30 feet. So that's a big difference, sometimes, especially with a crankbait or anything like that you really want to throw far. That's where I've really seen a big advantage with these reels.
Now, do the G7s, the ones you're doing more of the casting with, are those, do you know anything like any of the specs on them? Like, are they using ceramic bearings or is it stainless bearings? For the guys at home that are into what I'm into, like tricking out stuff like the Bass Resource and BBC Crowd.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't know all the
know if you
exact
have that
specs
information.
off the top of my head, and I don't know what the differences would be on those. I'd have to pull one to see it, but I'm not one that's crazy like like you said, you pull the reels apart, you add stuff.
Yeah.
That was never me. So I don't even know all like the big ins and outs for that. I kind of just use them, you know. But they've held up all year and they've been great.
So what with the basically the two kings of bass fishing, if in the real world, like the Tyson versus Holyfield is the Tatula and the Corrado,
Mhm.
in my opinion, and it's been that way for a long time. And those are two giant companies. With Arc stepping in the ring, and there's a lot of because even when I read about them, I went on Tackle Warehouse and I was like scrolling through because I've been running Daiwas for a while. I have a bunch of Shimanos too, and I like the magnetic brakes for skipping a lot. I skip a lot, like do a lot of dock fishing and stuff. So magnetic brakes are way more forgivable than a centrifugal braking
Mhm.
system. So like a skip and you crack the pontoon and wake the neighbors up, like you're not going to backlash on a Daiwa. Whereas a Shimano, if you really got to pay attention, thumbing the spool and everything, because you hit the pontoon is and game
Mhm.
over for floor apartment. But the the arc reels, the braking system really intrigued me
Mhm.
because it's something like totally unique, and even the ergonomics. And I like the fact too that they didn't. I use left-handed reels. I just grew up cranking with the left hand. I'm a righty, but my dominant hand holds the rod. That's how I grew up fishing. So I just always use left-handed reels. It's no rhyme or reason. But a lot of companies, especially newer companies, they'll come out with a bunch of new reels, but then it'll be like one gear ratio and left hand, whereas Arc's got the left-handed guys covered.
Yep. And then all different,
Yeah, no,
ratios and everything.
exactly. And I was gonna say I kind of screwed that one up, but the when I went on a Tackle Warehouse, I'm like scrolling through the casting reels to look up the arc reels to see like what the price points and everything were, and I was like, wow, there's like a lot of brands with reels out. I
Yep.
didn't know like there were, I didn't realize it all because I always just keep buying the same reels over and over again whenever I need to upgrade or whatever, like the newer models. So I never really paid attention to how many brands there were. So they stepped in the ring not only against two titans, but there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of competition. So what's the reel from Arc that's going to be the price priced around the same as like a Tatula or Corrado that's going to be in that battle?
The G5 is basically the price point of a Corrado K, as far as I
Okay.
remember. If they still are the same from, I think I used them like 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, that would be the G5 is around that price point, and then the G7 is less than I think. Yeah, it's much less than the Chronarch, but it's like that next level up to compete with, and actually like even be better. I used to use Chronarchs and I used to use Corrados, so now I'm using the G5s and the G7s from Arc. And like I said, they're the best casting reels I've ever had. And when I say distance, I go back to that because, they are one of the farthest casting reels I've ever seen in my life. But like you say, the braking system and all that, because you like skipping, the braking system's at gravity. So that's where you were talking about the other types of braking systems. That gravity is like the specific. That's the difference between an arc reel and anyone else. Now, this past iCast, it really was incredible to see all the reels that are coming out, like you just said, from multiple brands.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are rushing products to the market now because like it's the trend. Like every company wants to have rods, reels, they want to have all sorts of baits, and everyone's just kind of doing the same thing over and over, kind of copying one
Yeah.
another. Arc's development of the bait casting reels was a multi-year project. A lot of time into it, and they worked on that reel for many years. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. They decided one day, oh, let's make a reel, and it was together in a week or two. Like it took
Yeah.
multiple years for development on that, and they got it right
You
for sure.
you
Now,
can
I'm
even
excited.
tell, like, I'm sorry, I cut you off, the delay with the Instagram. Um, you have I noticed too, like they definitely put a lot of thought into it because looking at them, they look like the way they did the ergonomics of the reel, like certain things are like the certain positioning of where your hand is. It looks like it's offset a little bit. So for
Yeah,
ergonomics,
here, hold on.
I can't. Anybody driving and listening right now, you gotta come back and watch it at a later date because he's showing us one of the arc reels.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things is the awesome finish. They look really pretty. So that right away is a big giveaway. And, a real nice thing about these reels, this is the G7. That's the one that has this nice color finish. G5 is a little bit more on the darker side. But like, as I said, the carbon fiber handle. And it has just a lot of really nice things that go into it. And like he was touching on the size of it, like it will fit see how it kind of tapers. That's basically
Yeah,
for your hand, the way your hand's going to wrap around it. Real comfortable fit. You can see it's a shallow reel. It's not where it's like too bulky where you try to have to really like grab it to hold on to it. So it's very comfortable in your hand. I have smaller hands and it's perfect. That was always one of the hardest things I struggle with reels. When you had a little bit bigger than average reel, it made it really uncomfortable for me to fish with. It would hurt after fishing for a couple hours just based off the size. So this is more user friendly for anyone who doesn't have giant hands.
there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Now this is the G7. You
That's
said
the G7, yes.
G7. Now all the reels have the same ergonomic design, right? Or is it just like one or two of the models, or are they all going to have the same design like that,
The
where it's
shape,
slanted?
yes,
Yeah,
they all have very similar shape. They're about all identical for the most part.
including the new ones that were revealed this year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool. They're keeping everything uniform. See, I'm a big believer in that too. With especially like if you're a guy that's going to have like 10 rods on deck, and you want like consistency where you put a rod down and you pick the next one up, you know exactly like how
Yep.
because like if you're running different mixed match, like whether you're regardless what brand you're throwing, if you're running mixed match combos, you lose consistency, and then you might have to tweak the brakes or something like to reach the fish that
Mm-hmm.
like you're fishing for a schooling fish and they're blowing up, and now you picked up a different rod and make a long cast and got a backlash. Like when you have all your reels the same,
Mm-hmm.
regardless if you're a weekend warrior or a touring pro, I'm a firm believer, like if you have everything the same going across the board, and the consistency will save you time in the long run, just
Mm-hmm.
being know exactly what your equipment's doing without having to think about it.
Yeah, and it allows you to fish more confidently. Like if you believe in what you have and you really like the setup and like you like get in that repetition of having the same stuff, you can fish better. It's definitely a proven thing.
Yeah, I've had that happen a couple times where it's like pick up a rod, I'm skipping all day, skipping under docks to pick up a different rod, with like a might be the same brand, but just like a totally different model reel, and I'll pick it up to like try to make the same skip or something, and backlash,
Yeah.
like because you're not in the motions. But when you have everything like the same model, like in how your system's running, the G5, G7 is the
Mm-hmm.
deal. Now, like Dobbins, I'm with Dobbins. Um, these he came out with a line of reels too, but the only reason he did it was because a lot of dealers were asking for combos, like have a set price point to be able to have a combo for kids and whatnot to have access to just going in and buying a combo. Does
Mm-hmm.
ARC have any plans to do like with the budget reel? Like, do they have a plan to do like a combo as well?
Yes, and that's that. I believe that G1 that they revealed at ICAST, that'll be utilized with the catalyzer. So that'll be the entry level combo going forward, and it'll be a fair price point for the beginner angler who's looking to get into it, and it's a reel that they can start learning how to fish with, and then grow, and they can take a step to the G3, the G5, the G7 as they get more into fishing.
Yeah. Now, I strongly urge any brand out there to make combos and affordable packages
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of kids look up to guys like John. I might have kids looking up to me. I know I've, been boat captain for several high school teams over the years, and you want to have good quality products that kids can actually go and use at a good price. Like that's reasonable. Like not everybody can go out and afford a Steez and a Metanium or whatever. Even like with some of the brands, it's kids are priced out, and I want to see more and more kids fishing. I have a 2-year old; she's going to be fishing one day,
Mm-hmm.
and to have stuff that's like unaffordable isn't cool. So having guys like your company, guys like my company, and I want to see more companies do that, make stuff more affordable for the younger anglers.
Mm-hmm. One, affordable, but also reliable, and has to have some
Yeah,
quality. That's the biggest thing. Now, uh, you don't want to introduce complete junk to a kid, especially like at a young age, because they could be completely ruined by that. Like, it could break a kid's heart if he goes out there to fish and his day's ruined because his reel breaks or something goes
yeah,
wrong. So you definitely want to have great quality that you're putting out. That takes time. Can't rush things. So that's where I think a couple companies might be making mistakes where they rush some things. Like you see stuff like being fired out so fast.
yeah,
But you know, everything we have in the world, it'll break down at some point. Something can go wrong. ARC's customer service is top notch, and I'm saying this at my first ICAST, which was, or no, my first classic working, which was last year. The amount of customers that came up to the booth, and so I was just kind of just standing there, just greeting people that were coming in. The amount of people that came up and said, "Are you guys running a sale?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah, it's a great sale." They were like, "Well, I want to buy some rods because you guys have the best customer service I have ever seen." And it wasn't just one or two people throughout the course of a day that did that. I had 5, 6, 7 people come up and tell me that. And I wasn't searching for that. I'm just standing there saying hello as they're coming in. So that really was eye opening, especially as that was me just being introduced and getting in with the company that was, new to me. So that right away kind of opened my eyes, and I've seen that, work its course throughout the last 2 years. And it's more than just, the product. It's also the company, what the company's made of, and the people you work with. So that's huge for me. ARC is by far one of the best companies I work for, in my opinion. They are, top notch. All the guys across the board, even all the anglers we have across the board. So that kind of all, makes up, a big part of, having that company as part of my team.
now are they gonna have besides the customer service, are they gonna have excuse me, are they gonna have any type of real maintenance programs?
Probably not. Is that a common thing? I've never really heard of many brands that did that.
Well, jeez, I don't know what's wrong with me right now. The Shimano Iowa both have a deal where you can send the reels in. I think it's like $25 for a bait caster, $30 for a spinning
Mhm.
reel. Where you can send the reels in and they'll take them apart, re-lube them, and
Mhm.
slap them back together and send them back to you. So like an annual maintenance. And I know there's a handful of companies out there. Tackle Trap has done reel maintenance. One of my other sponsors, Delaware Valley Tackle, Mike Lawson over there, is based out of New York. He does real maintenance. It does upgrades and customized stuff. Like if you want to upgrade your drag washers to carbon fiber, or you want to replace your spool bearings, there's a lot of shops that do that.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
no,
I was curious
I
if
would
that's
say,
gonna.
I mean, I don't believe so. Uh, my opinion on that is I would say try to first utilize your area. You might have some small family-owned businesses that do real cleaning and real maintenance. So if you can utilize, a smaller company, especially around you, whether it's tackle shop or just someone who does it on the side, definitely, utilize that person for something like that. Because I know that's everywhere. I know there's a bunch of guys around me that do it. So if those options are available, definitely utilize those anytime you are looking to get real cleaning or real maintenance, take care of small businesses
All
for
right,
sure.
because a lot of people that might be worried that like, well, if like a part breaks or something, if they'll be able to get a part like after the warranty,
Mm-hmm.
like 3 years down the line, like, oh, I need a shim or something, or a handle warp, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Parts
doggy.
won't be a problem to get.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
parts won't be a problem to get.
All right, so there you have it, guys. Arc G5, G3, G5, G7, good, better, best were the original three. You got a BFS one coming out, a budget line, the G1, and then there's one more, and that's going to be in between the
The
one and
G8.
the G8, and
That'll
then
be the top of the
the
top.
flagship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no service, no killer customer service, but no real servicing. So guys, check out, if you guys check these reels out, if you got somebody local to do your reel maintenance in the future. And what's the other the BFS one. Now, have you used the BFS one?
No, I honestly, I just touched it for the first time at ICAST, so uh, that'll be a future reel. So once we get a hold of it and get to using it, I'll know more. But that's still, down the road some.
You gotta find out for me if the BFS is gonna have a clicking drag, because
Okay.
I have a couple friends that they use forgot what brand it is, but they have a clicking drag in it, and they drop shot with like 6 pound
Mm-hmm.
tests with baitcaster. Like this crazy. Like I would never think of that, but then with the clicking drag and then a couple other reels I use, they started implementing that back into baitcasters.
Mm-hmm.
So if the BFS has a clicking drag, I know a few guys that'll be all over that.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see like what I would utilize it for. First thought right out of the gate was
Ned rig.
a spy bait, spin bait, style bait. Something that you
Ooh,
can, throw long distance. You don't have to worry about, any line twists because I get a lot of line twists when you're throwing straight fluorocarbon on a spinning reel. So if that can take that out of the way and not have an issue by throwing that bait on a bait cast, I think that could potentially be huge. It would just be coming down to finding the perfect rod for it and really seeing how that bait, can be utilized over time with that combo.
yeah. Are you a big fan of spy baits?
Yeah, it has its time and place. I do like it when the fish will come right off the spawn and they're kind of a little funky, where they kind of just start to slide out. They're a little suspended, a little goofy. That's where I've kind of thrown it the most. I didn't utilize it in the past couple tournaments just because of time of the year, and they were a lot deeper, for the most part, more related to the bottom. If I got one, it was more so going to be on a drop shot, net style bait, tube, something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've become a big fan of spy baits recently, and I really not really crazy about throwing them on a spinning rod, but he kind of calls for it with the hooks. I've been doing like braid the leader, but the leader, it seems like I have to do like a longer leader, like the braid spooks them or something at that point when you're pulling it parallel through the water column. And the everybody was always like, oh, you'll drop a ton of fish on them. First couple years throwing them, like really getting into throwing them, never dropped the fish. I couldn't shake them off if I wanted to. This year, one of the events on Champlain, I had like 3 good ones on in one of the tournaments, and they all 3 of them spit it in a matter of minutes. I'm like, but I would love to get into a spy bait deal on a baitcaster. That's something.
And I've read a lot of articles where a lot of guys who are good at it claim that you need to throw it on a baitcaster because it's a treble hook bait, but you actually have to get a hook set on them. I don't know if it's just the way they come up and they eat it, or I think a lot of fish aren't even trying to eat it. I think they're just trying to injure it. They come up and they swat at it. So on a spinning rod, you're going to be a lot lighter action, more parabolic bend, and I don't think that allows you to penetrate those hooks. So the guys that I've read articles who are really good at that bait and that technique embrace it on a baitcaster, and they have a lot more success. And I do believe their fish landing rate is much higher, and it's something to do with the baitcaster. It's just you have to get that perfect setup with the reel and the rod to make that all happen. So I'm looking forward to definitely trying that reel when it comes out, finding the right rod for it, and just seeing what my landing percentage is based off of on a spinning rod. And I know it's nowhere near close to 100% on a spinning rod. That's for sure. I want to, for every bait, every technique, I want to get as close to 100% on the landing ratio as I possibly can. You know, for what we're fishing for, you want to try to land everything that you have bite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the baitcaster deal. I've read, forgot which pro it was. I read an article, he was talking about it, and he said he basically uses his jerkbait rod, and but I've seen, I'll say this one tournament, I've pretty good success using more of like a moderate action rod, spinning rod, whereas with jerkbaits I like an extra fast rod because I want to be able to work the bait. It's more for working the presentation versus landing the fish, whereas the rod I've had success with on the spy bait is more for keeping the fish pinned versus working because I'm just reeling. I don't have to impart any action manually into the bait. So, but I don't know. I guess we covered all the bases. You got any shout outs for any sponsors or anything?
No, I feel like we hit a few of them in this video, which that was great. We even had some tune in. So,
Yeah.
But everyone that does make my season happen, I can't thank all my sponsors enough. They all play a great role and an impact on me being able to fish at the highest level on the Bassmaster Elite Series. So I can't thank them enough for everything that they do. You know, all my friends and family as well that are all part of the team and, you know, what makes up me and what I do and allows me to live out my dream.
Wait a minute. You brought up friends and family. You were recently engaged.
Yep. After the St. Lawrence on Saturday, had a bunch of family members up, and it was a perfect time to do it. So did it in Alexandria Bay. So it's a lot of stress with that last tournament to do well, but also that day, you know, kind of had it planned. Had a real nice setup, and it was a great moment. So she said yes, in case anyone was wondering. Get to see that.
Did you have the ring in your pocket while you were fishing? That's what everybody wants to know.
No, gosh, no. We were at Champlain and then St. Lawrence back to back. I was not allowed to even have it on myself at all. My parents had it. They were going to bring it, so they were in charge of getting it to me.
That's not something you want to lose.
No, not at all.
Oh, man. Well, congratulations. I'm happy for you. I know all the fans are happy for you. And shout out to the future Miss Kelley.
Yep.
And yeah, so yeah, man, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it, you know. And we've crossed paths several times, you know, between few like the team derby was Fish Saturday, a previous one, all random tournaments over the past couple years. So we're from the same area. We're both from the Northeast. So appreciate you coming on, and definitely appreciate all the intel on the ARC stuff because those reels look phenomenal. I want to check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll sign off, but anybody else watching at home, all the videos are now on YouTube and Spotify. So make sure you guys check them out. Road to All American. You can catch up on the season. This is episode 11, and we got 2 more left because I'm doing these pre and post each event. So the last event of the season is in a couple weeks. It's going to be on the Potomac River. I qualified for the regional championship, so I'm going to be down there in a couple weeks for that, and hopefully punch my ticket to the All-American, and that's what all this work is for.
Yep. Well, good luck. Catch them up.
I'll try, buddy. All right, brother. Well, have a good night. Thanks again.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.